The Indian community in Japan. Welcome to this episode where we'll explore the life of the Indian community in Japan, a group that, while numerically smaller compared to other migrant communities, is steadily growing in presence and adding fascinating layers to contemporary Japanese society. Recent data estimates that there are over 50,000 Indian nationals living in Japan. But the key point isn't just the number, it's understanding who they are, why they're here, what they do, and how they influence both their own lives and Japanese society. In this video, we'll look at their historical journey, where they live, what jobs they hold, how they live, the challenges they face, their interaction with Japan, and, of course, what the future may hold for them. Join us on this fascinating journey. Early history of India-Japan relations. The relationship between India and Japan didn't begin with modern migration. It has much older roots. For example, as early as the 8th century, the Indian monk Bodhisena traveled to Japan and contributed to the development of Japanese Buddhism. Moving to the modern era, by the late 19th and early 20th centuries, small groups of Indian, or British Indian, traders settled in Japanese port cities such as Yokohama and in the Kansai region, particularly in Kobe. In 1901, the Japanese government recorded only 30 residents from British India. A decisive turning point came with the Great Kanto earthquake of 1923. Many Indian merchants in Yokohama lost their businesses and relocated to Kobe, which became a key center of the Indian community in Japan. Thus, the early history of Indians in Japan is a story of pioneers, traders, cultural and religious connections that predate modern migration and of settlements that shifted in response to major historical events. Modern growth and key residential areas. From the late 20th century, especially from the 1990s onward, the Indian community in Japan began to grow more rapidly. Until then, as we've seen, Kobe had been the main hub. Later, Tokyo began attracting an increasing number of Indians, particularly technology professionals. One of the most representative areas is Nishi-Kasai in Tokyo's Edogawa ward. Reports indicate that a large share of Indians in Tokyo live there, and the neighborhood has been described as a kind of Little India. The reasons are many: convenient transportation, such as the Tozai subway line, proximity to business centers, relatively affordable housing for expatriates, and an established community that supports newcomers. So, while the total numbers may seem modest, the Indian community is geographically concentrated in certain key urban areas, and its presence is increasingly visible in Japan's cityscape. Employment, professions, and entrepreneurship. One of the most interesting aspects is what Indians in Japan do, what kind of work they engage in, what sectors they dominate, and how they start businesses. Statistics show that a large portion of the community consists of highly skilled professionals, engineers, IT specialists, academics, as well as entrepreneurs and self-employed workers. Many Indians arrive under the highly skilled professional visa category, while others run their own businesses, import-export Indian goods, or manage restaurants and shops selling Indian products. Participation in technical training or internship programs, like the Technical Intern Training Program, has also increased, although most Indians still come for professional rather than unskilled labor purposes. This reflects both the opportunities Japan offers, especially amid labor shortages and an aging population, and the challenges of adapting to a very different work culture, language barriers, corporate hierarchy, and social expectations. Community life, culture, religion, and social networks. Daily life in Japan's Indian community isn't just about work, it's also deeply shaped by culture, religion, and tradition. Within the community, people speak multiple languages, Indian languages, English, Japanese, and practice religions such as Hinduism, Sikhism, and Jainism, among others. In areas like Nishi-Kasai, you can find Indian grocery stores, restaurants, community organizations that host cultural events, and celebrations of festivals like Diwali and Holi. Temples, mutual aid groups, schools for Indian children, and associations supporting integration show how this community builds a home away from home. These cultural and social spaces play a dual role. They help Indian families preserve their identity while also creating bridges with Japanese society, fostering mutual understanding. Education, families, childhood, and preserving identity. The experience of Indian families in Japan deserves special attention. Many professionals arrive with their spouses and children, turning what was meant to be a temporary stay into a more settled life. Reports show a growing number of Indians holding permanent residency or family visas. For their children, growing up in Japan means living biculturally, attending Japanese or international/bilingual schools, socializing with Japanese peers, while speaking Hindi, Tamil, Urdu, English, or other Indian languages at home. In Nishi-Kasai, for instance, an Indian international school has opened, attracting even Japanese students. The main challenge is ensuring that these children maintain a link to their cultural roots while integrating smoothly into Japanese life, learning the language, adjusting to the school system, and participating in local society. Parents also need support networks to navigate housing, schooling, and legal matters. This highlights a crucial point. Migrants don't just work, they live, raise families, educate children, and contribute to the host society's social fabric. Interaction with Japanese society and integration challenges. Being part of a migrant community in Japan inevitably means interacting with a majority society that has its own language, culture, and deeply rooted social norms. How do Indians manage this? What obstacles do they face? Some reports suggest that while many Indians describe experiencing kindness from individual Japanese, they have also encountered discrimination or unequal treatment. The language barrier is significant. Mastering Japanese opens both professional and social doors. Workplace culture, expectations, hierarchy, long hours can differ sharply from India's norms. Housing can be another challenge. Initially, some Indians struggled to rent apartments or secure contracts. There's also the broader issue of how Japanese society perceives foreigners. Japan has long been relatively homogeneous, with subtle barriers to full integration. Thus, the Indian community balances between preserving its cultural identity and adapting enough to thrive in Japan, a delicate equilibrium that brings both successes and tensions. Contributions of the Indian community to contemporary Japan. Far from being a passive group, the Indian community in Japan contributes in multiple ways, professionally, culturally, and socially. Indian engineers and specialists help fill Japan's talent gaps in IT, research, and global development. Culturally, Indian restaurants, shops, and festivals enrich Japan's urban landscape, adding culinary diversity, creating jobs, and promoting cultural exchange. Nishi-Kasai, for example, is not only a residential hub, but also a visible cultural center for the Indian community. These links also strengthen broader India-Japan relations in trade, education, and tourism, benefiting both nations. In this sense, the community acts as a cultural and economic bridge. Indians in Japan are not just living there, they are active participants in the country's evolution, its social fabric, and its global outlook. Future outlook and emerging scenarios. Looking ahead, the Indian community in Japan faces a future full of both opportunities and challenges. Japan is undergoing major demographic changes, population aging, labor shortages, and the need for greater internationalization. This opens the door for more foreign professionals, including Indians. For example, in 2021, Japan and India signed an agreement allowing Indian citizens to obtain specified skills visas in various industries. At the same time, questions arise. Will many Indians shift from temporary stays to permanent settlement? How will Indian families prepare for their second generation, children born or raised in Japan, and their hybrid identity? And how will Japanese society's attitudes evolve toward more visible foreign communities? Another possible scenario, stronger India, Japan collaborations in education, innovation, and professional mobility, which could lead to more structured migration flows. For such developments to succeed, issues like language support, housing, cultural adaptation, and residency policy will be crucial. In short, the future of the Indian community in Japan will likely be more settled, more diverse, and more visible, but it will also depend on Japan's social climate and immigration policies. Conclusion and message to the viewer. In conclusion, the Indian community in Japan is much more than a statistic. It's a mosaic of history, migration, work, culture, family, contribution, and future. From the first merchants in Yokohama and Kobe, through the growth in Tokyo, to the families who now call Japan home, this community stands at the crossroads of two nations, India and Japan. I invite you to reflect, what can we learn from this experience? What does it teach us about multiculturalism, adaptation, and preserving one's identity while integrating into a new society? And I also invite you to share your thoughts. Do you know anyone from the Indian community in Japan? Have you lived or worked in multicultural settings? Share your experience in the comments.